And hello again, and welcome to the second video about making this seat unit here for my Guzzi. And in the first video, part 1, we saw how I worked out what shape I wanted and how we made it in aluminium. Next I want to go and see how it looks on the bike, and I've got to do two things today. The first one is work out how to mount this seat on the bike, and the second thing is to mark out very carefully where I want this lower edge of the seat hump to be, because right now it's made over long so that I can cut it back to wherever I prefer. So let's get on with it. Okay, so here we go with the very first test fit of the seat unit on the bike, and looking at this, it looks pretty good so far. Now since I've not got the correct mounts for the seat yet, it's sitting far too low compared to how it will be when it's finished, so ignore that for the time being. I'm more interested in the width here to make sure it clears the seat rails correctly, because these seat rails widen as they go back, and so of course the seat has to as well. What else? Let me just check at the back. Not sure you can see this, but right now I've not really got enough clearance between this lower edge of the seat and the tyre. Now that's partly because it's sitting lower than it should do, but even if I raise it up slightly, say about there, which is where it might be in its final position, it's still looking a little bit too low, particularly when you think I've got to add a rear light and of course the rear plate to this. But that's okay, because we expected that to happen, and we made this lower edge longer than I thought it was going to be on the bike when it's finished. So now, once I've made the brackets to mount the seat, I can carefully mark off on here where I want to cut the bottom edge of this seat base to get it how I want it and give me the clearance that I need. But first, we've got to sort out the mounting brackets. And now, if we take a closer look at the current mounts for the old seat unit, we can see the rear seat bracket is pretty simple. It's just a bent bit of stainless steel, easy to reproduce. In fact, what I will do is I'll make a new bracket that'll be a lot higher up. Not sure how much higher up yet, but that's why I've got these spaces here in my hand, because then I can play around and try and get the right height for the new seat unit. I've got different thicknesses here, look, so yeah, I can play around and hopefully get that right. But looking at the front mount, it's a bit weird. It's got these two prongs that go back, all very strange, and the reason for that is because they were made to match the front mounting bracket here on the seat that I first fitted to the bike. So if I didn't already have this thing here, I certainly wouldn't try and replicate it, but since it's here, I may as well use it. So next thing I've got to do is remove this bracket, take it along with the seat unit, and Jeff can make me a couple of tubes to go on the underside of the seat to match these two prongs, so it replicates the way the Ducati seat used to mount. And the beauty of this particular seat mount is that it's easy to raise and lower, because I built it for the spacer to sit below it here. So sure enough, I want to raise it up, and that means I just need to make a thicker bracket, and I can do that at home, so that's no great problem. Yeah, so next I need to remove these brackets and work out where they need to go on the new seat unit. And now I'm just back home from a quick trip to see Jeff the welder, who's done a few more small jobs on the seat unit today. And the first thing he's done is to cut this little section out at the front of the seat, and that's required to clear the boss on the back of the tank, which I forgot about. And next we made a start on the seat mounts. Beneath here we can see there are these two tubes being welded onto the seat, and they are made to engage with this thing, which in turn is bolted to the frame. So that'll slide like that. That's fine. And then at the back, it's too soon yet to do a mount at the back here because I'm not quite sure where it's going to go. But what we did do was we changed from this original bracket that holds the seat unit to the frame at the back to a new one. It's not quite finished yet, but it's a bit longer, and that will raise up the seat the required 20mm to keep things nice and level. Anyway, that's what we've done so far, and now I need to go and try it out on the bike. And now finally I'm pretty happy with the position of this seat on the bike. It seems to be at the right height, and it runs parallel with the seat rails here, so that's pretty good. However, as always, you change one thing and it affects something else. And in this case, it concerns this front seat mount. And I've raised it up so far to give me the clearance I need. It's now hitting the underside of this alloy seat boss, and that's not a good thing. In time it will probably fracture the tank. Luckily, I don't need this little hole, it serves no purpose. So what I can do is just saw around here, or file it round and clear that seat boss, and the problem solved. So anyway, with that done, I'm going to now make 2 spaces to replace all the washers and whatnot I've got underneath here to get me the right seat height. And then at the back, I just need to drill 2 holes here and here in the back bracket. And once that's done, I can use those holes as a guide to work out where on the seat base the mounting bolts will have to go. And next I need to mark out where I want this lower seat base to be cut. And I did find trying to use this stuff, masking tape, quite tricky. It didn't really work very well. So instead I resorted to use this stuff. This is 3M vinyl tape, and it's used for marking out pinstriping on paintwork. And it's great stuff because it's vinyl, and it's got some really clever kind of glue on it, so that you can peel it off, put it back on again, peel it off, put it back on again, and keep on trying it until you're happy with the result. It's also very flexible and stretchy, so as I say, much easier to use than good old-fashioned masking tape. Anyway, I wouldn't say this is absolutely 100% symmetrical, but it's pretty damn close, so I'm going to go with that, and we'll cut this off, and I'll just eyeball it, and if need be we can file it and grind it back until I'm pretty happy with it. And that's what's next. And now here we are the next day, and a very windy day at that. Hopefully you can hear me above the sound of the wind outside. And as you can see, I've cut a piece out of this bracket to clear this tank boss, and I've also made 2 20mm spacers to raise it up, as we mentioned before. And with that fitted, let's try the seat back on the bike. And meanwhile, at the back of the seat, you can see I've now cut back this lower edge to match this stripe I added yesterday. Not quite there yet, I've left about 1/2 mm clearance because I wasn't quite sure how accurate I got. I cut it by using tin snips, followed by a file, followed by wet and dry sandpaper. Wasn't that difficult to do, so I'm pretty happy with that. And looking at this, I've now got to check the clearance I've got above the rear tyre. And so, overall then, it looks like I've got this curve pretty symmetrical, left to right, pretty happy with that. But I've only got 60mm clearance above the tyre, and I don't think that's quite enough. Maybe 70 or 80 might be okay, but 60 not quite there yet. So what I should really do is recut this back a wee bit to give me that clearance. However, I've got a different plan, and this is my alternative plan. In here we have a pair of brand new, very expensive, progressive shocks. And they're remote reservoir, and they're pretty damn cool. Let me just get that out of there. Yeah, fully adjustable damping, adjustable spring preload, pretty cool. And these are slightly longer than the cheap and cheerful YSS shocks I've got on the bike at the moment. So I've been saving these for quite a while now. I was going to use them on my Norley, but I think they're a bit too modern. But they will also fit on the Guzzi, and the spring rates are about the same. So hopefully these will give me an extra 1/2 inch or so of clearance. And so, let's get them on the bike and see how they look. Or then again, perhaps not. Here is one of the YSS shocks I've just taken off the Guzzi, and here's the new progressive shock next to it. And as you can see, this one is a little bit longer than the YSS, but not by much, only by about 5mm, and I think that might not be quite enough. And that's not the only problem with trying to mount these new shocks on the Guzzi. I'm not sure if you can tell from the video, but these mounts here are different sizes, different diameters in fact, and the mount on the Guzzi is much larger in diameter than the mount made on these progressive shocks, and so they don't fit on the bike anyway. Now I'm sure that Progressive will make different sized eyelets for these shocks, but given that I'm only going to gain about 5mm extra ground clearance, and the hassles of changing it over and the costs and so on, I don't think I'll bother. So instead, these can go back on the bike for the time being, and I'll look for a solution elsewhere. Okay, so I'm just back from the workshop and done a bit more work on the front of the seat. And you might notice I've now profiled this leading edge to more closely match the back of the tank. I've also taken out the sharp box that we cut into the centre to clear this boss, and instead just smoothed it all out, made it nice and smooth, and I think that should make it a lot easier when it comes to the seat being upholstered. Still not quite happy about this gap here, and that's because the seat is a lot wider than the one I had on the bike originally from the Ducati SS 900 Desmo. But given the fact it has to be that wide to clear the seat rails, I'm not sure what else I can do. Now it could be the case that this gap here won't be so obvious once the seat's been upholstered, because it'll be black and obviously the foam will help to cover up this gap here, but even so it's still not ideal. And so we'll end this video here, and in part 3 I'll cover the upholstery and the mounting of the rear light and plate, which I'm still not sure about, and also perhaps I'll source some new shocks which will be a little bit longer than the ones I've got on the bike right now. And so for now, thanks for watching and cheers.